Hare Krishna, dear friends and devotees. Today we will go through 14th chapter of Nectar of Devotion, which is called Devotional Qualifications. So at the end of the previous chapter, we said that Srila Rupa Goswami start discussing if different things like Varnashrama and Jnana and Vairagya, are they part of the process of sadhana bhakti or they are something different? And at the end of the previous chapter there was discussion about Varnashrama Dharma, and the conclusion was that technically it is not part of the process of pure devotional service, but it is helpful for the devotees, especially in the beginning of their spiritual life, to purify their hearts from material desires. And now in this chapter we continue with some analysis of the relation between Vaidhi sadhana bhakti, or the process of devotional service, and the things like Jnana and Vairagya. Are they part of bhakti? Do they have do devotees need to have Jnana and Vairagya, or knowledge and renunciation? So this is described in this chapter. So, some scholars recommend that knowledge and renunciation are important factors for elevating ourselves to devotional service. But actually, that is not a fact. Actually, the cultivation of knowledge or renunciation, which are favorable for achieving a footing in Krishna consciousness, may be accepted in the beginning, but ultimately they may also come to be rejected, for devotional service is dependent on nothing other than sentiment or desire for such service. It requires nothing more than sincerity. It is the opinion of expert devotees that mental speculation and artificial austerities of yoga practice may be favorable for becoming liberated from material contamination, but they will also make one's heart harder and harder. They will not help at all in the process of devotional service. These processes are therefore not favorable for entering into the transcendental loving service of the Lord. Actually, Krishna consciousness devotional service itself is the only way of advancing in devotional life. Devotional service is absolute. It is both the cause and the effect. The Supreme Personality of Godhead is the cause and effect of all that be, and to approach Him, the Absolute, the process of devotional service, which is also absolute, has to be adopted. And here we have a quote from Bhagavad Gita. One can understand me only through devotional service. In the beginning, his teaching of the Gita, the Lord says to Arjuna, because you are my devotee, I shall teach these secrets to you. Vedic knowledge means ultimately to understand the Supreme Lord, and the process of entering into His kingdom is devotional service. That is accepted by all authentic scriptures. Mental speculations neglect the process of devotional service, and by simply trying to defeat others in philosophical research, they fail to develop the ecstasy of devotion. So now we have different quotes here that are showing that devotional service is independent from anything else, and this is the only way to get Krishna. Then Srila Prabhupada continues. Actually, a person who is developing Krishna consciousness and still has some attachment to material enjoyment will soon be freed from such a tendency by regularly discharging devotional service under the instruction of a bona fide spiritual master. So this is the first thing discussed in this chapter, or the connection between Bhakti and Jnana and Vairagya. Damodar Maharaj is explaining very nicely in his book Waves of Devotion that Jnana, cultivation of knowledge, and Vairagya, cultivation of detachment, may preliminary help a new devotee focus on Krishna by freeing him from distracting attraction to sense objects. However, the practice of jnana and vairagya does not fix the mind directly on Krishna. Rather, it is absorbed in philosophical discrimination between matter and spirit. Fixing the mind on Krishna is the most essential part of sadhana, and since jnana and vairagya fail to do so, they are not items of sadhana bhakti. And also he is saying that cultivation in jnana and vairagya, according to Rupa Goswami, have the tendency to make the heart harder. But in the realm of bhakti, one needs a soft heart, because bhakti is all about expressing your emotions in the direction of Krishna. So if your heart is hard, then this is not possible. Damodar Maharaj says, Bhakti, however, means to please the Lord by our love for Him. To express such love requires a soft heart, one easily moved by the Lord's name, form, qualities and activities. Jnana and Vairagya are not favorable to devotional service because they result in heart. Sri Rupa Goswami quotes Srimad Bhagavatam to support this point. So, although we may say the process of Jnana and Vairagya are not technically part of Bhakti Yoga, as we said, they are helpful in the beginning, when the devotee should learn to control his tendency for sense gratification, and also, even later, although the process of Jnana and Vairagya are not favorable, the elements of knowledge and detachment, they are part of the practice of bhakti. Because a bhakti yogi, he has knowledge, he has perfect knowledge, and a bhakti yogi has also detachment from the material world, from the world of sense gratification. So these elements are there in the life of the bhakti yogi in his practice. So what is the proper way to have this detachment and knowledge in the life of bhakti yogi, but without a tendency to make his heart harder? And the answer is yukta vairagya. This is renunciation which is connected with Krishna. And now this is the next thing which is discussed in this chapter. Sri Rupa Goswami recommends that one should not be attached to material sense enjoyment, but should accept everything enjoyable which is in relationship to Krishna. For example, eating is necessary and one wants some palatable dishes to satisfy his sense of taste. So, in that case, for the satisfaction of Krishna rather than for the satisfaction of the tongue, some palatable dishes may be prepared and offered to Krishna. Then it is renunciation. Let the palatable dishes be prepared, but unless they are offered to Krishna, one should not accept them for eating. This vow of rejecting anything which is not offered to Krishna is actually a renunciation. And by such renunciation, one is able to satisfy the demands of the senses. Srila Prabhupada continues, the impersonalists who try to avoid everything material may undergo severe austerities, but they miss the opportunity of being engaged in the service of the Lord. Thus their renunciation is not sufficient for perfection. There are many instances where, following such artificial renunciation without any contact with devotional service, the impersonalist again fell down and become attracted to material contamination. There are many supposed renouncers, even at the present moment, who officially become sannyasis or renouncers and outwardly claim that spiritual existence is truth and material existence untruth. In this way, artificially, they make a show of renunciation of the material world. However, because they cannot reach the point of devotional service, they fail to achieve the goal, and they again come back to material activities, such as philanthropic work or political agitation. There are many examples of so-called sannyasis who gave up the word as some truth, but again come to the material world because they were not seeking their real repose at the lotus feet of the Lord. One should not give up anything which can be utilized in the service of the Lord. That is a secret of devotional service. Anything that can be utilized in advancing Krishna consciousness and devotional service should be accepted. For instance, we are using many machines for the advancement of our present Krishna consciousness movement. Machines like typewriters, dictating machines, tape recorders, microphones, and airplanes. Sometimes people ask us, why are you utilizing material products if you condemn the advancement of material civilization? But actually, we do not condemn. We simply ask people to do whatever they are doing in Krishna consciousness. This is the same principle on which in Bhagavad Gita Krishna advised Arjuna to utilize his fighting abilities in devotional service. Similarly, we are utilizing these machines for Krishna service. With such sentiment for Krishna or Krishna consciousness, we can accept everything. If the typewriter can be utilized for advancing our Krishna consciousness movement, we must accept it. Similarly, the dictating machine or any other machine must be used. Our vision is that Krishna is everything. Krishna is the cause and effect, and nothing belongs to us. Krishna's things must be used in the service of Krishna. That is our vision. So, Damodar Maharaj says, Yukta Vairagya means to accept only those things that can be used in Krishna's service and to reject everything else. It is a balanced process of detachment by which a devotee inquires the qualities of knowledge and detachment without undergoing the hardening process of jnana and vairagya. On this path, the emotions are still engaged and they do not atrophy, but the emotions and activities engaged by Yukta Vairagya center exclusively on Krishna and therefore effectively extricate us from the mundane sphere. Thus we can become attached to the Lord. On the other hand, one should give up Palgu Vairagya. Palgu Vairagya means false renunciation. This does not mean, however, Srila Prabhupada says, that we should give up the principles of discharging devotional service or neglect abiding the rules and regulations prescribed therein. In the neophyte stage of devotion, one must follow all the principles regulated by authority of the spiritual master. The acceptance and rejection of things should always be in pursuance of the devotional principles. Not that one can independently manufacture some idea of what should be accepted or rejected. The spiritual master, as the visible manifestation of Krishna, is necessary, therefore, to direct the devotee on behalf of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. So the idea is that if we are accepting everything, but not for ourselves, but for the satisfaction of Krishna, this is it's not false renunciation, rather includes renunciation, but it's a very balanced renunciation because we put Krishna in the center. And this is a very safe position. It keeps your heart soft. It doesn't make your heart harder. Then, Damodar Maharaj says that Srila Rupa Goswami is discussing how one should be careful not to be misguided by trying to accumulate big amounts of money in spiritual life or gathering big amounts of followers, and one should be very careful about this. And also, if someone thinks that, let's say, if a wealthy person gives a large donation to build a huge temple, this is his devotional service. But if he thinks that because of that, everything that goes on in this temple after that is his devotional service, this is not proper understanding. Srila Prabhupada says, spiritual master must never be carried away by the accumulation of wealth or large number of followers. A bona fide spiritual master will never become like that. But sometimes if a spiritual master is not properly authorized and only on his own initiative becomes a spiritual master, he may be carried away by accumulation of wealth and large numbers of disciples. His is not a very high grade of devotional service. If a person is carried away by such achievements, then his devotional service becomes slackened. One should therefore strictly adhere to the principles of disciplic succession. A Krishna-conscious person, being naturally purified, has no need of developing any other purificatory process of thought or action. So now starts another discussion, how devotional service, practice of devotional service is not dependent on any qualities that one should first develop so that he can practice devotional service. No, rather is the other way around. If one starts the process of devotional service, then all the good qualities slowly they will manifest in his character. On account of his being highly elevated in Krishna consciousness, he has already acquired all the good qualities and is following the rules and regulations prescribed by the mystic yogic process. Such rules are automatically practiced by the devotees. A concrete example is the quality of non-violence, which is considered a good qualification. A devotee is naturally non-violent and therefore doesn't have to practice non-violence separately. Some people seek purification by joining a vegetarian movement, but a devotee is automatically a vegetarian. He doesn't need to practice separately in this matter or to join any society for vegetarians. He is automatically a vegetarian. There are many other instances showing that a devotee need not practice anything but Krishna consciousness. All the good qualities of the demigods automatically develop within him. Those who are intentionally practicing to be vegetarians or to become non-violent may have good qualifications by material estimation, but these qualifications are not sufficient to make them devotees. A vegetarian is not necessarily a devotee, nor is a non-violent person. But the devotee is automatically both vegetarian and non-violent. We must conclude therefore that vegetarianism or non-violence is not the cause of devotion. And there is example in this regard. In this connection, there is a story in Skanda Purana about a hunter who was converted into a great devotee under the instruction of Narada Muni. When the hunter became a perfect devotee, he was not prepared to kill even an ant. Parvata Muni, a friend of Narada, saw the wonderful transformation of the hunter by devotional service and remarked, "My dear hunter, your unwillingness to kill even an ant is not very astonishing. Any person who develops the devotional attitude has all the good qualities automatically manifest in his person. A devotee is never a cause of distress to anyone." Sri Rupa Goswami affirms herein that purification of the consciousness, purification of the bodily activities, austerities, peace of the mind, etc., all become automatically manifest in the person who is engaged in devotional service. So this is very important point. In the practice of devotional service, it is not that first we have to develop some good qualities and then only we can practice devotional service. Rather the opposite, other way around. If we seriously practice devotional service, from these all good qualities will come. All good qualities will appear in us, in our heart. And then the last thing which is discussed in this chapter is Sri Rupa Goswami explains that one can practice, so we know we have the 9 direct process of devotional service like Shravanam, Kirtanam, Smaranam, serving the lotus feet of the Lord, offering prayers of the Lord, and so on and so on. 9 direct process of devotional service. Sri Rupa Goswami is explaining one can achieve perfection by following one of those processes, or he can follow all of them together. And he is giving examples how there are personalities who achieve perfection by following one of those processes, but we also have examples of great personalities who achieve perfection by following all those 9 processes together at the same time. There are concrete examples of how a devotee discharged one of these services and achieved perfection. King Parikshit achieved the desired goal of life simply by hearing Srimad Bhagavatam. Shukadeva Goswami achieved the desired goal of life simply by reciting Srimad Bhagavatam. Prahlad Maharaj became successful in his devotional service by always remembering the Lord. Lakshmi, the goddess of fortune, was successful by engaging herself in massaging the lotus feet of the Lord. King Prithu became successful by worshipping in the temple. Akrura became successful by offering prayers. Hanuman became successful by rendering personal service to the Lord Ramachandra. Arjuna became successful by being a friend of Krishna, and Bali Maharaj became successful simply by offering all of his possessions to Krishna, Atmanivedanam. And then is given the example of Ambarisha Maharaj from 9th canto of Srimad Bhagavatam, which who at the same time was performing all the 9 processes of devotional service. And there is a description how he was doing this. Shukadeva Goswami says, King Ambarisha first of all concentrated his mind on the lotus feet of the Lord, and then engaged his speech in describing the pastimes and activities of the Lord. He engaged his hands in washing the temple of the Lord. He engaged his ears in hearing of the transcendental glories of the Lord. He engaged his eyes in seeing the beautiful deity in the temple. He engaged his body in associating with the pure devotees of the Lord. He engaged his nostrils in smelling the flowers and Tulsi offered to Krishna, and he engaged his tongue in tasting Krishna prasadam. Food prepared specially for offering to the Lord, the remnants of which are taken by the devotees. Maharaja Ambarisha was able to offer very nice prasada to Krishna because he was a king and had no scarcity of finances. He used to offer Krishna the most royal dishes and would then taste the remnants as Krishna prasada. There was no scarcity in his royal style because he had a very beautiful temple wherein the deity of the Lord was decorated with costly paraphernalia and offered high-grade foods. So everything was available and his engagement was always completely in Krishna consciousness. The idea is, Srila Prabhupada says, that we should follow in the footsteps of great devotees. If we are unable to execute all the different items of devotional service, we must try to execute at least one of them, as exemplified by the previous acharyas. If we are engaged in execution of all the items of devotional service, as was Maharaja Ambarisha, then the perfection of devotional service is guaranteed from each one of these items. With the first complete engagement, one becomes automatically detached from material contamination, and liberation becomes the maidservant of the devotee. This idea is confirmed by Bill Mangala Thakur. If one develops unalloyed devotion to the Lord, liberation will follow the devotee as his maidservant. So this is the 14th chapter of Nectar of Devotion, and with this 14th chapter we are finishing with describing the 64 angas or items of Vaidhi Sadhana Bhakti or regulated devotional service. And from the next chapter we will continue with description of spontaneous devotional service or Raganuga Sadhana Bhakti. So until now we are discussing Vaidhi Sadhana Bhakti, and next time we will continue with spontaneous devotional service or Raganuga Sadhana Bhakti. Hare Krishna.